Hajime mashite boku wa JD desu, another YouTube land. I am currently just looking at the desktop from my phone because it's a headless rig. Headset's not necessary, it's for the laptop. If someone does join my Xbox party, you're not going to hear them. That's just a basic breakdown of what's going on. I just feel like chatting. No one's online, it's raining. I don't feel like walking in the rain. I really meant today to go back to the skyboat. I'm having a lazy day. I mean, how many of them aren't lazy days? But this one I'm kind of focusing on it being a lazy day. Double check. Oh. My remote session is reconnected. I wonder if it's still streaming. Let me look. I can look at that. Well, I guess it's up. Hey, that's me showing you the reconnection screen. The audio sounds better than when I did the walkabout. I'm just going to cancel that. I don't have to connect to the laptop or instance, if you will. I'm not going to watch. I mean, I'm on a different Wi-Fi source. Kill that one. I guess one thing I wanted to talk about. Well, there's 3 or 4 things that I had in mind. There's this topic, this thing, this experiment that's been around for a while. I know of it as the behavioral sync. You can find it, just Google that, behavioral sync, or I forgot what it was, so just Google Rat Utopia experiment. Let me pull this up real quick so I can give you more of an accurate idea of what I'm talking about. Yeah. 1958 and 1962. Well, between those years. This study, what was that? Was that, it says that it was conducted on Norway rats. I don't know if they were in Norway or not. Either way, I would rather you extrapolate or view that information on your own. The basis, the gist, the idea. They made a utopia. All the food and water you could want. And as a rat, that's pretty much, you're not going to need Wi-Fi. And considering it was in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, they didn't have Wi-Fi. But all you could want, pretty much as a rat, is food and water. And space. That was the important part. That's where I'm going to end my commentary on their experiment. Watch the video, it's on YouTube. There's a bunch of them, but start with the basic stuff, not the breakdowns and the my opinion is Because an opinion, you know where that is. Watch it, get your own opinion. Basically, utopia, all the food and water, huge space. It can house house them. They reach a synchronization. Well, again, we'll go back. Look at the research. I don't want to interpret it for you. But they reach this synchronization. And they stop reproducing. Now they have access, to everything they need. They get to a point and then they stop reproducing. Even after the population has steep declines, they continue. My interpretation is to refuse to reproduce. So, take that as you will. My point of this topic that I'm discussing is the birth rates around the world. They've been below below the level you need to maintain your population. Now, this isn't an exact match. Sure. The rats were contained, and humans are not. But if you look at that around the world, and I'm not sure how many countries have a sustainable birth rate. Didn't exactly study it. But I know the handful I've looked at, Japan, America, England, China, they're below the sustain level. Now, I first discovered this, 20 some odd years ago when I lived in Japan. The birth rate is still below the level you need to keep the country going as a country. Now, no one, there's been ideas and proposals and things put forward, if you will. No countries implemented it that I'm aware of. So what's going on with that? And I don't have an ultimate idea or plan or fix. It's just something I wanted to throw out there. Comment below, if you will, for your idea, your tactic, or if it's full of shit in your opinion. Because again, this isn't even my opinion. This is my two independent or multiple independent observations. I did not seek out the behavioral sink study, SINK, because of my knowledge of the at the time it was only the knowledge of the Japanese issue with not having enough babies. Like it wasn't a related thing. I wasn't like, oh, hey, let's see if we can find anything to support this. No, it was separate. In fact, I saw it and I was like, that's interesting, that's weird. And it was several years later. Matter of fact, it was about 10 years ago. It's 2023. It was about 10 years ago that I even related them to each other. And 10 years ago is about the time I was like, well, let's see what other countries have a declining population. I forget what the term is, but have a population that is, not making enough babies or having enough immigration to maintain a population for X. And that's when I discovered China, UK, US was also on the same boat. South Korea, North Korea, definitely. The statistics are harder to get your hands on for North Korea, but the basic information is there. And it's none of it like, if I remember anything, India was the only one that was above zero. Like, zero means that you have no growth and no loss. And what I'm talking about, basically, in case you just haven't looked at this, have no clue what the hell I'm onto, zero would be, in 1 year, 500 people die, random number, and in that same year, 500 people are born. Now you have to remember, before the birth people count, they have to be 15, 20, 15, 18, 20, depending on where you are. And that's like as a baseline integer. Like not someone that graduates with a PhD and becomes a doctor and researcher. Just someone that hits 18 in the US, they're an adult, they have a base intelligence that is higher than the IQ that would eliminate you from military service, so that you can perform as a functioning adult and generate taxes, spend your money, make money from what the fuck ever, and then spend that money and generate taxes, income tax, sales tax, be a consumer. So I think India was the only one that was at a zero. I don't have this pulled up now. I haven't looked into it in the last month. It's not a drive of mine. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not a thing I have to keep up with. But it's always been there in the back of my head. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have better. Pop it in the comments. If you have a better source or a better comparison, let me know about it. That would be really interesting to me. Thinking about it, I want to charge my battery. Where the hell ever this thing is. My walkabout battery, if you will. And that's where my passion on that topic actually kind of ends. Not my knowledge, but my passion. Typically, I would like to do this with talking participants on Discord or Xbox or Line or whatever. Like Ron and Iron, Will and Kel. They typically have input or feedback that challenges my ideas or the general ideas. Because this isn't my idea, this isn't my conjecture, this isn't my construction. This is just information that I've collected and I'm kind of sharing, and I'm trying to wrap my head around. Does that mean that in 2050 Japan will collapse? Does that mean, the states by 2120 they will not have the population to sustain being a country? What happens then, Like everyone wants to talk about race wars or race conflict in the States. And oh, you gotta respect people if they think or feel like they're not the sex that we identify them naturally as, or if they think they're a helicopter or whatever. Not even trying to be facetious there. I'm being serious. It's like we're worried about that, yet we have this real problem. The biggest problem is that real problem, or I'm not a real problem, kind of makes it think, well, yours is fake. We have this bigger, more oppressive problem. Yeah, sure, all right. In 100 years, you can look back. Like right now, if you look back to 1923, yes, we oppressed races. I'm not going to name a single specific race because that's kind of pointless, considering who was oppressed in the last 100 years. But yes, all right, so we can see that today. Yes, we did that. Now, in 100 years, if 3 countries have literally collapsed, that means other countries will either be hosting refugees, which would boost their population. I will take you in. But it would still be a burden because you're taking in someone, a group of people that were not indoctrinated. They didn't grow up in your culture. They didn't contribute for 40 years, but they're 40 years old. And then, so they come in, and for their first 1 to 5 years, they're not really going to generate. They're going to be looking for things, work they can do, for how they can contribute to society. And then you're going to have deaths. There's going to, whatever country collapses just because they can no longer function economically. They don't have the base. People will die. People will die just because, people hang out. They hang out in frickin' Florida, Texas, along that area between the Gulf of Mexico to Florida. People just hang out there. Hey, hurricanes every year blow my house up. I just use insurance. All right, well, what if the insurance just stops? There's not enough customers to keep the insurance going. Big hurricane hits, and then they're like, well, we don't have the money. We're going bankrupt. What are you going to do then? And then, okay, so the government will help. With what, aid? They're not going to give you a house. They might give you housing. We've all seen that. So what happens? Well, then you don't have a house. Then you don't have insurance that can pay it back. Then you're starting over. That's where I'm going with it. So what happens? What do we do? No idea. I don't worry about it because obviously I don't think I'll be around. But a government body should be addressing it. Going into that, I hate politics, but there shouldn't be a leader of any country that is above the age that you would let them drive, say, a city bus or a long haul bus or an 18-wheeler. Pilot an aircraft. To be the leader of a country, you're driving the entire country. Yes, you have a team. Sure, I understand that. But I think that if you can't pilot a commercial aircraft, like I don't mean eyesight, knowledge, of flying a plane and all that. I just mean like the basic, hey, can I sign up to be an airline pilot at 65? That should be the baseline. Can I drive a bus? Interstate, long haul or short, whatever, short duration, whatever, short city, just inside the city, outside the city, whatever, between the states. Can I be a bus driver at 65? Can I be a train engineer or operator, whatever? Aren't the engineers the ones that actually slow down and speed up the train and all that? Any of that. If there's a restriction on age, like the FBI, what is the upper age to join and why? I think that should apply to politicians. Joe Biden is entirely too old. He might have had great intentions when he was younger. You can't project that confidence and expect people to, oh, well, his ideas are good. He just stammers and can't complete a sentence. Or Donald Trump, way too old. He can't form a coherent sentence. Sure, he can complete it, but it's not coherent. And that's, what was it? Clinton and Obama, and Bush, they could completely, like they might not say anything that actually makes sense, but they spoke a complete coherent sentence. You can ask them, what color is chocolate? And they would talk about the flavor of an orange, how we landed on the moon, and why America is the greatest place. They didn't answer the question, but their sentence and their response was coherent, concise, and made sense on its own. That's all I want. I don't care who runs any country. Just I don't want some dude that falls down steps, some dude that thinks that the way you say China is Gina, and that might just be a speech impediment, but that could be addressed, especially if you're under 65. You can address any problem with speech. Once you're very old, you're always going to say something wrong. You can't train that out of yourself. There's no way to. Your brain doesn't have the ability. Yeah. So going back, we're not going back. Just on that, we need world leaders able to address problems as well as the people they're talking to. I don't need someone, oh, we're gonna reduce taxes or increase taxes. No, we need to fix the fucking tax thing altogether. And one way to do it is to address the fact that, well, in 50 years, how many people are going to be in the country to pay taxes? You can't just tax the shit out of somebody and then have no laws to regulate housing or food prices. You're going to have to balance this crap. I'm overthinking it. At the same time, I'm probably not. That was one of... I should have called this Rants. This won't be in my Randomly Japan playlist. I kind of had another direction too, and I can't remember because no one is on. Of course, they would have started talking about something else at this point. I don't know. I don't know. The heck. I think that's it then. I'm not going to drag out not being able to remember the other thing. So I'm going to pull up the desktop and we'll go ahead and close it there. That's 25 minutes. That's that's good enough. So if you've been with me this long, don't forget to subscribe and like. Subscription is a lot more important right now than liking, but if you are subscribed, drop a like. Oh, did that glitch?